In his first column for the New York Times, Bob Herbert wrote, quote, "Given a choice, most of the country would like not to hear from them, children of poverty and of the inner city, at all." He went on to state that the big story in Washington is the struggle over the federal budget, but that means nothing to the children of the cities. They are nobody's constituents. We hear about them mostly when they are killing somebody and sometimes when they are dying, end of quote. Almost 20 years later, Bob Herbert has never accepted this veil of societal silence. He has championed and continues to champion the underrepresented voices in our communities. Many times, Bob Herbert's voice has stood solitarily against a tidal wave of opinion and popular rhetoric. Always, his voice has returned us to our ideals and our promise as a community and as a nation. Bob Herbert began his journalism career over 40 years ago and spent almost the past 20 years as an op-ed columnist for the New York Times. His writing has earned him numerous awards, including the American Society of Newspaper Editors Award in 1988 for distinguished deadline writing, Columbia University School of Journalism's 1989 Meyer-Berger Award, which honors distinguished and enterprising reporting by New York journalists, and the 2008 David Nyan Prize from the Shorenstein Center at Harvard University for excellence in political reporting. In 2009, he received the Reidenhauer Courage Prize for the, quote, "fearless articulation of unpopular truths," end of quote. An engaged citizenry demands such fearlessness. We cannot forget this. At Allegheny College, we value and seek to foster a sense of community engagement, an engaged citizenry. Bob Herbert's lived expression of such an engaged citizenship sets the bar for each of us. He embraces the dignity of the individual and employs his intellect to sculpt his passions with sensitivity, strength, and insight. He is a man who understands that the pursuit of justice and dedication to service take great courage, a courage he has shown regardless of the personal cost. His willingness to speak continues to shape our country into its best reflection of itself. He demands that we live up to our values and that we look ourselves in the mirror and remain honest about that which we see. He demands that we work to strengthen the relationship between the ideal and the lived expression of our democracy. He is fearless in his pursuit of justice for those impacted by our policies and our actions. His fearlessness has led to direct redress for victims, to outrage, and to actions that have transformed our cultural and political landscape. Bob Herbert reminds us that to be an engaged citizen requires not just the donation of time and energy and resources, but also the courage to speak and to act, and the belief that one can and will make a difference in one's community. The knowledge that this democracy cannot be sustained by what they, our government, and corporations do, but it instead is sustained and thrives based upon what we do, each of us. When accepting the Reidenhauer Courage Prize, Bob Herbert talked about two notions that seem to have permeated our landscape: a sense of powerlessness and a failure to acknowledge responsibility for the important events of our time. He said, quote, "Both of these notions that Americans are basically powerless to intervene in their own fate and that they bear no responsibility for the important events of their time are wrong. And not only are they wrong, they're dangerous." End of quote. Bob Herbert asserts that we, as individuals, have tremendous power. He demands our individual responsibility to be informed and engaged citizens, citizens capable of courage and responsible to our ideals, ideals of the individual and of the nation. Wade Henderson stated when awarding the Ridenhour Prize, Bob Herbert, quote, remains the conscience of a nation trying to find its way, reconciling America's ideal with America's reality, end of quote. Today, Allegheny honors a man who has been that conscience for 40 years and who invites us to accept the challenge to shoulder that responsibility with him, a responsibility to shape, define, and be responsible for both our individual and our collective future. Mr. President, I have the honor to present to you for the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, Bob Herbert.
Funny stories at dinner last night. People have been asking me, am I going to make the graduates laugh this morning or this afternoon? And sadly, I'm not, at least not intentionally, because I'm going to talk about some serious things. I just heard this morning, actually, that the graduating class of 2011 has the unfortunate distinction of graduating with the highest average college debt load of any class in history, something over $22,000, so it's time to be serious. It is indeed a great honor to share this special day with you, and so my thanks to President Mullen and to the board and to the faculty and all who are present here, and to the relatives and friends of the graduates and the graduates themselves. Thank you for having me here. We'll see if you're still happy about that after the address. A few years ago, before the last recession hit, I met with a group of students who were about to graduate from the School of Law at Vanderbilt. And several wanted to practice public interest law, but they said their college loan debt was so heavy then that they had no real choice but to join the law firm and start making as much money as they could. Since then, we've gone through the worst economic downturn in this country since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Youngsters coming out of school with enormous debt loads now have the additional burden of facing a bleak employment situation. And that's a very tough one-two punch. I had always thought of the period right after college as a joyous time when young men and women could more or less chase more or less freely after their dreams. The heavy responsibilities of family and professional life would come soon enough. Certainly the choices to be made during that period would not be all about money. But things have changed. College costs have increased spectacularly, and there are debts to be paid. If there is a well-paying job to be had, common sense seems to say you had better take it. No one knows if or when another one will be coming along. Now my question, when I think about those young people at Vanderbilt and the fact that economic conditions have only worsened since I met with them, is whether this is the kind of society that we want. You guys graduating today from this wonderful school are smart and talented and young and beautiful, and I am so jealous. You are among the most fortunate people in this society. If even you are facing a difficult job market and these kinds of tough choices at such an early age, imagine what it must be like for the less fortunate. So I want to direct your attention for just a few quick moments to what I think is the most serious problem facing our country today, and that is its shrinking employment opportunities and its extreme and growing socioeconomic inequality. The United States is becoming a dangerously